Hello, everybody. This is Matthew Brand. Welcome to the Amethyst Podcast, and this is the Happy Valentine's Day special. I'm recording this late night, and I was going to do it in a single take, but I keep being unsatisfied. Unsatisfied with everything except this cigar, because this cigar is fantastic. I'm smoking the Salutamore Eroa Presentis 20-year series. I don't know why they got to be so fancy with the title. They know Americans people. Sorry, they know American people are smoking this cigar. For like 90% of the market. Put it in English. I'm joking. You respect the heritage of the people who make the cigar, but it's the 20-year series, and that band is loud. It's classy, but it's bright, and I wasn't expecting this mature, classic, vintage flavor I'm getting from the cigar. It's a very wonderful leather, musky, hint of floral, but a lot of leather and notes and stuff like that. If you're into flavor notes, if not, then just know this has this real classic, good old school cigar taste, and I mean premium old school. I don't mean like basic old school. I mean this thing has got flavor for days, and it has been treating me great. From the band, I wasn't expecting the taste. I mean, more along the Padron lines, like this. I wonder if this is one of the like a top cigar of the year at some point in time. It really brought me back to some of my favorite cigars when I started smoking. I don't come across this flavor very much, and when I do, I absolutely love it. And it's hard to put a finger on it because it's such a like you get the classic. I would say tobacco, just like good tobacco taste, and sometimes you get this taste, which is this. Again, it's not quite floral, but it's like a musky, like premium leather good taste. I'm hitting into the getting to the final third, and it's just man, it's so amazing. Anyway, there's enough of me. Uh yeah, needed a moment to myself. Sorry, cigar was that good, but I'm looking at the band. It says 20-year series on it, and it made me think. This is Valentine's Day. Is this a salute to love, right? Salute amor. And I'm thinking of the last 20 years because that's probably the first time I had a girlfriend was 20 years ago, and I've been dating for 20 years. Half of that was probably in serious relationships, and the other half of that was just kind of continuous dating. And there's been a lot of lessons. I kind of want to think about the lessons, the stories of the ages that I've learned through my dating. And I don't mean when I say through the ages, I don't mean my personal life. More along the line of you know these love lives that we have. They're classic. Nothing's new under the sun. People have gone through these. And one of the things I love about learning the past and learning history and mythology and all these different stories is we can learn to solve our problems by looking at how, people who went through the similar situations, these tropes of love, have gone through before us. So I'm going to talk about love tropes kind of throughout the the ones I've learned most likely the hard way. And just going about those. This is going to be a long, just kind of lengthy, rambling episode. I remember thinking about the old school ads they used to play, like when you're like, "Hey, what does this goldfish have in common with you getting any girl you want?" And I know a guy who looks like Homer Simpson, and he gets three girls, who all know about each other, and he's not rich or anything like that. And then there was another one about like, oh yeah, I used to be such a loser. My girlfriend kicked me out the apartment, and I was sitting in the car, and the police pulled me over, and they were like, yeah, she kicked me out so she could spend time with another guy, and they were just looking at me like, so I'm such a loser. They had all these different kind of ads, trying to sell you the secret to, you know, making women. This one trick to make any woman fall in love with you. And I think about about that, like all the way back, couple decades ago when I would see those ads online. That was back when MySpace was popular. So I mean, that stuff was so silly. But it's funny because we think about that, and yet all these tropes tell us about the love. How love works throughout the years. We just don't take them seriously or literally. We just look at them as stories, but they're tropes that really apply to real life as well. There's a reason tropes exist is because they reflect real life scenarios, these myths and legends and all that kind of stuff in our own lives as well. So the first trope I'm going to talk about is kind of like which I kind of learned the hard way, was trying to be the good guy. You see this in a lot of, what would you call it? What would you say? Like Hitch talks about it. Um, it's the corrupted good guy, the person who wasn't cool enough. He had a crush on the girl, asked the girl out, but he's lame. He cares too much. He's trying to do the right thing. He thinks being a good guy is going to work. And I don't mean the creepy friend zone guy. I'm not talking about that guy. We all know the creepy friend zone guy, right? He acts nice to you because the reason he's acting nice is because he's hoping that he'll get something out of it down the line when you and your boyfriend break up. Uh, or maybe you don't have a boyfriend, but that's the real reason he's being nice to you. And after being nice to you for a while, starts to get cranky because he was only being nice to you for that particular reason, and he didn't get what he was after. Right? We know that guy, Doctor Friendzone. So this, I don't know. This I learned the hard way. Trying to date somebody, trying to be polite, trying to be the gentleman, and then everybody's pulling me to the side like, dude, why aren't you, doing making your move, doing what I'm like, well, I didn't know I was supposed to do that. A lot of people don't get told these things, especially if they don't have, if your parents don't tell you, your friend, the other guys typically aren't going to tell you because you're competition, and the girls aren't going to tell you because I don't want to say they lie, but how do I put it? They don't want to be seen in that kind of light. You're not really admitting, out loud what they really want a lot of the times because it would make them look bad. Girls are very conscious about their self image, or not their self image, sorry, their outward image. They want people to view them in a good light. It's much more important to them than it is to men typically. Of course, there's always exceptions to the rule. So if you don't get told those things, you just think. But in all reality, a lot of times girls want you to take the initiative. They want you to be assertive. However, there's catches to it. They want the one they like to take the initiative. They want the guy they like to be the one to make things work. Next is you get the guy who I don't know how to explain it. You get the trope of and you see this very often. I've seen this way happen way too many times. It's a girl. She's in a steady relationship, and there's one or two things that's typically wrong with the relationship. You've seen this in a classic love triangle, but it plays a little bit differently in real life a lot of the time. So the classic love triangle is you have the very proper person who's the good guy, and then you have the bad guy or a bad boy or whatever, right? Or somebody who's uh, wild and free, maybe on one hand, and these don't necessarily match up. I'm just saying, you usually have two people who are very different in a lot of ways. One person's wild and free. One person sticks to the rules. One person's very aggressive and violent and dangerous. The other person is more orderly. And in romance novels, they typically go with whatever guy is more alpha, I suppose. Even though a lot of people act like that's not a thing, it doesn't exist. At least in romance novels, that's what they tend to fantasize about. Whoever's the most dangerous or the richest or the person who's in control of every situation, the person who always gets their way, and they give that up for this one girl, right? She's there's something special about her that makes him change his mind. But again, there's usually some competition between another guy who makes the stakes a little higher, and that's the classic love triangle that you have. And this usually typically is a thing, but really what happens is a girl will typically be in a relationship. Sometimes as a guy, it's not that it doesn't. I mean, I've had it happen both ways with me, but it'll be a girl. Yeah, not. I don't swing both ways. I mean, I've been on both ends. I've been, I've had a love triangle where two women, or I've been unfortunate enough to be, in a love triangle with a woman who's choosing between me and another guy. That's what I meant to say. Don't don't twist it around. Anyway, the point is, that is a thing. Sorry, I was just fixing to burn on my cigar. But that is a thing, and they're usually two opposites. But what typically happens is the girl has gotten unhappy with the downsides to whatever she's dating, and then the other person comes around, which does show up sometimes in romance novels. But the guy isn't necessarily always trying to actively steal the girl. Sometimes the opportunity just arises, and she or a guy takes that opportunity. So let's say, for example, you have a guy who he's very caring, he's very considerate, he's very loving, but he doesn't care for the things that the girl goes out and does. Like, she likes, she's kind of bored. She wants to go out and drink. She wants to go out and party. She wants to go out. This happens a lot in very young relationships when you're in your early 20s, because the dynamics shift very gradually. I was even warned about this before that happened to me, but there was nothing I could really do about it. But somebody did actually warn me about this. And it's like you're in a relationship, but when you hit your early 20s, all these different things pop up that you didn't know about before. So let's say, for example, you're dating a girl and she's irresponsible with bills. Well, you don't know that because you guys have never had to pay bills before. How would you know? You were both living with your parents before, but now you move in together and they're not a very good roommate or partner. Let's say, on the other hand, you have a guy who's very caring, very considerate, but he's not out for partying. Well, that or clubbing. Well, that was never in an issue because you guys weren't really necessarily old enough to go out clubbing all the time. So now that clubbing is available, turns out she likes clubbing, so now she's going out clubbing all the time. Now, these things aren't as important all the time when you get older because a lot of times people don't have time to be going out clubbing. Even if they're that kind of person, it's not as much an issue. And when you're younger, it's not an issue because those activities aren't as available. So that person hasn't become a drag yet. But as people get older, it starts wearing on you when someone's not going anywhere with their life, or it starts wearing on you that someone's considerate all the time, and doesn't like to go out. And these are two opposite behaviors, but it just depends on which one you were already dating, right? Usually in a lot of love novels, the girl hasn't even been with one of the people yet. It's just two people competing over her attention, and she hasn't really had that much of a steady relationship with either of them. But in real life, it's more along the lines of she's been in a relationship with one of those kind of people, or the guy's been in a relationship with one of those kind of people, and somebody of the opposite comes by and presents this grass is greener scenario. And again, it's a grass is greener scenario. Things often aren't better on the other side. They're just different, and maybe the person prefers it like that. Maybe the person wouldn't mind, being in a relationship where they just sit at home in their parents' basement and smoke weed all day with their boyfriend. Maybe they like that. And sometimes, when you're really young, that may be more appealing for a few years until then you like, oh, maybe I messed up. Maybe I should have stayed with the person who was more responsible because the responsible person may seem better several years down, when you guys are in your later 20s and 30s, right? These tides shift, right? It's the wheel of fortune. These things go around. And so a lot of times, just depending on the age and what's going on, uh, this weird love triangle happens. And you don't get warned about that. So, what do you do to prevent that kind of situation? Well, a lot of times, really, what you have to do is you just have to treat somebody really well. And a lot of times it comes up, it's not just that you were stiff and didn't like going out. A lot of times there's other bad things because it's a relationship and bad things happen, and there's going to be moments where you don't always treat the person the best, and there'll be moments where things get stale and they'll wonder, oh, well, is there some more stuff out there? But if you give enough, right? If you give what you're asking for a lot of times, or more than what you're asking for, or something equivalent to what you're asking for, a lot of times you'll notice that if you just even take a week away from that person, they're going to want you like a crackhead misses a rock. I mean, they're just going to miss you. It's just the way it is. But sometimes when things get stale, you haven't been acting the best. So that opens the opportunity for people to wonder, like, well, maybe I'm being mistreated. Maybe the grass is greener. That gives them more of that fuel. And a lot of times, we'll treat people bad. And not everybody does this, but a lot of people will treat people bad because uh, it's their own self validation. They're feeling self conscious, so they treat somebody bad as a way to prove extra to themselves that they're worth it, that they're worth something. But I would say reflect it in your actions as opposed to reflect it from just who you are inherently. Inherently, yeah, you are worth something, but you do want you like your actions. Like, I don't agree with a lot of things in the show. There's a adult animated show. It's called BoJack Horseman, and in that show, uh, I don't agree with a lot of stuff in that show. But one thing that is said in the show that I kind of resonated with is if a person does a lot of good things, then generally they're a good person. It it doesn't necessarily matter if they're bad on the inside or bad on the outside. Sometimes you can question what they're doing it for, but when you make the right decision, you know, 80% of the time, 85% of the time, 90% of the time, you don't make horrible decisions that outweigh all of those, then you're generally going to be considered good. But some people, they do, I would say, not the greatest stuff, and they make excuses for it. They have a poor attitude. Their attitude isn't welcoming. They're not trying to look great for the other person. They're not trying. They don't care because they want the person to love them because them. And it just doesn't simply work like that. It's not a exchange, but you have to sit down and sometimes ask yourself, like, what is it that I do that makes me, a wonderful partner to be with? And if you're having a hard time thinking that, sometimes you need to take some time and self examine that. And if you have, maybe a list of 10 things, hey, I cook for the person, I give massages, right? I try to look nice, I try to look good the way they like, something appealing to the person that I love. You, what would I say? You have a drink ready for them every time you come home. You take them on dates, right? You, um, I would say, let's say you're warm and welcoming to be around. You, let's say if they like you to stay at home, then you stay at home. if they like you to, let's say you like some type of activity. Let's say, for example, there's a niche activity that the person likes, then you're willing to do that kind of stuff with them. So, I have a lot of the things I like are niche. So, like cigars, anime, storybooks, nerd stuff, things like storybooks. What I mean is like books with fiction, fiction or nonfiction, but like it has a story to it, is what I'm trying to say, as opposed to nonfiction or as opposed to like how to books and things like that, right? So you like stories, right? And you guys like to talk about stories, or you're willing to watch those type of anime and stuff like that with them. You clean up the house for them. You do, these are a variety of things that you can do that to make the person want you and want to be around you. And if there's a long list of things that you're doing, even if things don't work out with the person, you're going to find out that you're going to pretty much have a happily ever after. And not only that, you're going to have it soon. But when you haven't had that time to self reflect what you're doing that makes the other person happy or that would make another person happy, a lot of times you feel lost and you don't seem to understand what it is that you're losing out on. Another thing is there's a lot of people who give all of that initially and don't have anything else to give on the other side. So people aren't dumb a lot of times. So say you want a relationship or you want marriage. If you're giving all that in the dating phase, um, what are you gonna? How are you gonna up the ante when it comes to marriage? Are you gonna do it? I mean, it doesn't even have to mean you do more. Maybe you could do half of it, and when you get married, and you do some of it every now and then, just to show that you can, right? That just to show that you would, and but it will be on a regular basis once you get married, right? There's the promise, at least. Maybe, maybe, um, the promise is when you get married is you do a little bit of it now, of everything now, but the quantity, you do all of it, but the quantity of all of it will increase once you get married. Maybe, you know, you do it for little things here and there, like maybe the car, maybe you help them with little gifts here or there, or you buy a girl gifts here or there. But when you get married, it's not that those things will increase, but just by proxy, with you guys living together in the house, you'll have a car, you'll have a house, you'll have more of all of this. So um, they'll not necessarily increase in how much you do it, but they'll increase in the quality of it. So maybe, uh, you know, now you're cleaning, the apartment looks nice, but soon it'll be a home. You're selling a future when you want to get married. And that's how that works. So that's kind of how it works, and that's kind of how you prevent those situations where somebody wants to leave. And again, that doesn't mean that there's a promise nobody will leave. But what it is you're making it so that there is no upgrade. You are the upgrade, and that's where you want to be. And you notice in none of that, I really talk that much about looks, because looks is just an initial thing, and a lot of times the big problem is people are being way too shallow with the swipey apps now. They're not really getting to know the person, to know that they do all those kind of things for the person, and it's becoming quite a shame. And also, you get this issue with if you have a bad relationship and you dwell on that bad relationship, people see you reflective of that bad relationship. I give you an example. Like if you say like all you talk about is how bad this girl was to you, um, they people don't necessarily view you as the reason it was bad, but they also can't view you as the reason it was good. Instead of talking about or complaining about why the relationship was so bad, maybe talk about all the stuff that you did for them. right? I used to do this and that and this and that. And you don't want to put it in a light where you could never do more for person B. So let's say, for example, you were in a relationship with a woman and you did all the things that I talked about. You cook, you clean. Yeah, you can do that for a woman too, right? I know plenty of guys who, all the girls want to be with him. It just so happens, yeah, he does clean at the house. He is the cleaner at the house. And you cook, you clean, you massage, you bring home money, you buy gifts. You do the whole shit boing boing, right? And it doesn't mean there's nothing she can do for you. It just means you do a lot for that woman. And you say after you guys break up, well, I would never do that for another woman again. I'm never doing that for another girl again. You don't want to hear that sounds horrible to the next person that you're dating, right? If a girl says, hey, I used to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G for my ex boyfriend, and oh, my next relationship, I'm never doing that. I'm never. No, why would you say that to the person that is going to treat you better than the last person? That's what you're hoping to do less for them. It doesn't make sense. It's illogical. So that's a way a lot of people stab themselves in the foot too, and it's just something that a lot of people don't think about. But it's a weird way bitterness stabs you in the back, and you got to let go of that stuff. And sometimes it's a point of healing, but you can, if you portray what you do for a woman. But again, you have to kind of portray this to the right group of people. Sometimes you're just not around those kind of people. So how do you advertise, right? So now you've set up a set of things that you do where you treat the person that you're going to be with well, or you plan to. There's a list of things that you are absolutely willing to do. Because again, it's not that you do it great, it's that you're willing. Most of the time, if somebody's willing, that's the price point. I'm willing to do this. And then from there, as long as you're willing, there's really no reason. A lot of people they'll ask, why wouldn't you want a girl with way more experience? Well, a girl who's willing is way more valuable to me than a girl with more experience. Because you can have a lot of experience, but you're not willing to do anything. I don't do that. I don't like to do that. I don't do this because of my ex, right? That's the baggage that people talk about. But if a girl who's willing is extremely appealing because it's like, okay, they're willing to do everything. And same with a guy. They're willing to go above and beyond. You want a person who's going to go above and beyond, not tell you what they're not going to do. But so you've established that. You're willing to do all these 10 things that are very important to whoever you're going to date, hopefully. How do you advertise that, right? How do you put that out there? You're not going to walk around handing out business cards like, hey, looking for a girl or looking for a man. These are all the things that I do. Are you interested? I mean, there was a scene in the show that I don't even watch, but I remember the guys sat down like, uh, rich white male seeks matrimony, But the thing is, how do you put that out there? Well, one, again, you wear something appealing so that it looks, you look like the kind of person who provides that kind of thing. But two, uh, you bring it up in conversation, but you bring it up subtly. You don't blast it out there. It's the difference between a movie that has a good message, like I'm not just going to say, let's for sake of non-political controversy, let's say it has a good environmental message, like let's say Sonic the Hedgehog, right? Yeah, I think everybody knows what Sonic the Hedgehog is. If you watch the old Saturday morning cartoon, they're the old. That's what they call it, Saturday AM, Sat AM cartoon. Sonic the Hedgehog. The environmental message was very subtle, right? And there's also other movies where the messaging in the movie is very subtle. It's not hammer you over the head with like, oh, it has like Captain Planet, right? Pollution is bad. Like I get it, but sometimes you can, just tell a story, And through the story, you understand why A is bad or B is bad, right? You can see, they talk about the balance of nature, and you show examples of how things get if, things get out of balance. You also show the other person's point of view, and then allow people to come to their own conclusions. But when you lie, or hammer things on the head, what happens is people, once they find out that you're just blatantly lying, they get this, straight up like, hey, I don't, it's not I don't trust you anymore, but then your whole point becomes invalid because, well, what else are you lying about? You get what I'm saying? Or, it becomes kind of, hammer over the head. It's like, well, well, that's just an opinion, when it's put in subtly, or put in through uh, showing or story, right? Then people can start to pick up. Like I know this one girl, she was getting engaged, and I didn't know she was getting engaged when I first met her, but she was getting engaged. But you saw through all of her actions how willing and above and beyond she was willing to go for everything in her life. It was shown through every aspect of her life. Hey, I'm willing. She lived a life that exuded service. You know, she oozed servitude out of every pore. And that's not just a woman thing. Like, as men, we live in service of the people that we take care of, right? That's when you have a baby, it's that old, I guess it's a perspective kind of thing, right? It's a dog versus cat, if you've ever heard that before, right? So the cat, or the dog, let's say the dog is like, oh, this person feeds me, it takes care of me, he washes me, he makes sure I have everything I need, he must be my master. And then you have the cat who, you know he feeds me, it takes care of me, he does takes care of all of my needs, I must be its master. It's more a matter of perspective, right? But when you really think about it, the dog is protective. They protect, you know, the person that they serve. Regardless of how you view it, you're still living a life of servitude, you know. But the point is, you're in service of somebody. And if you exude servitude, this is where a lot of people fail because they don't want to look like a servant. They don't want to look like a good servant. They want to look like they're in charge. They want to feel important. They want to feel like they're the cat's meow, and you know they're the obvious, whatever. Just because they exist, they held some sort of importance that you know makes them valuable. And what you'll notice is the difference is one person can be humble, in their servitude, and the other person puts others down so that they can feel better. Their only method of feeling better is putting other people down and building themselves up. They A pity party is also another way you'll notice these kind of people, right? They'll be constantly laying out some type of pity party. You don't want to do that. Now, I'm not saying you got to be positive all the time. It's just that when you talk about things, you should be talking in a manner of, almost being like, you should show, hey, I take care of people. Talk about the ways you take care of the other people around you. And it doesn't have to be in a romantic relationship. But this is another reason you want to treat the people that you do date good, because it shows that you're that kind of person. That's the kind of person people want around, not just for dating, for work as well. If you're an employer, you see, hey, this person works hard. This person tries hard. They try their best. A lot of people would rather have somebody reliable who tries their best and they're willing than somebody who uh, is, full of themselves and can't be bothered to do such a thing. The real issue that you get is when somebody who is like that, who is willing, who is caring, who is considerate, and they're so agreeable they get taken advantage of, and that's where you know the downfall is. You can't let yourself be taken advantage of. So where do you find that balance? Well, you have to be able to put your foot down at the right times in the right places, and sometimes you have to kind of know where the line is drawn, right? Because agreeable people can often feel taken advantage of, and if you live a life of servitude, um, is being able to draw that line is ultimately important, and being able to weigh out what you're getting and what you get in return, and that comes on a negotiation table. You don't want to be mean with negotiations, but you want to establish a negotiation, and what should never fall into the negotiation is should and shouldn't, and or should and what's the other word, supposed to, right? Should and supposed to, should not, those aren't negotiation words. So those are times when you should really be like avoiding those kind of words. Like if someone's like, "Oh, you're doing it," well, you're supposed to. Yeah, no, it's not supposed to. um Really famous, you know uh episode, Everybody Loves Raymond, the only episode I remember. They were arguing over that it was about the jar of grease, and then you got both of their perspectives. The dad was going through all this trouble to during a time when things were just way rougher than they are now, to put food on the table so his wife could stay at home, and she was going through all this trouble to be a good wife and make good meals for him and all this kind of stuff. And all the reality was they both just didn't feel appreciated, and that's really what it was. And he said, and that this really, I always wish they didn't go there with the episode. Instead of coming to the understanding, he said, "I don't have to appreciate you. That's your job." Or no, that anything somebody does to you should be taken as appreciation, but it shouldn't be taken as I'm supposed to or I should or something. Everybody's doing it for a reason. If you're at a job and you do something, you do it because you're getting paid to do it. And at a certain level, you have to wait. I would say, uh, weigh out what you get paid or the benefits of your job with the negatives, and that's where the negotiation table comes out. And if you're not establishing a list of these, like a concrete list of these in your head, or maybe even on paper, or just laying it out there for yourself to understand what your pros and cons are, then sometimes that's how you either get frustrated or taken advantage of. Maybe you are getting treated good at your job, but you feel like you're getting treated bad, or you feel like you don't understand the benefits. Maybe it's a benefit to you. Like, for me, sometimes my job is may pay less, but I can work important things around my schedule. So I have to remind myself that that's an important part of the job that makes it more valuable. Where other people may, get worked to death, and they get work, 8 hours or 8 days a week, but they get paid way more than other people do in other jobs. So it's more valuable in that manner. And relationships aren't much different. And the last part I'm going to say is kind of this employer employee relationship, which kind of still hits on the same note. But a lot of times people go into relationships kind of seeing themselves both as partners. And it's not that you're not part in it together, but very often, if you don't have an established idea of how the dynamic of the relationship is supposed to go, then sometimes people can feel taken advantage of, because if it's supposed to be an employee employer kind of relationship, another person is wanting to feel like a partner, another person is treating it like their employee, they're not going to be happy. But it is that kind of manner, and a lot of people enjoy that kind of manner, right? It takes a lot of weight off their shoulders. Some people like working hourly. They don't want to be in charge of a company. They don't want all the duties. Sometimes they want the prestige of a position, but they don't want the responsibilities of being in the highest position. So it gets balanced out, and then by doing that in a manner that then they become happy, they become ecstatic, they become, like, this is why people give these titles at work. Sometimes they're just titles, but marriage or wife, that's a title. Hus- Husband, it is not as big great as a title, the person. So, and instead having that title of, like, boss or owner or something like that, not of the woman but in general, that means more. Being able to feel like you're the boss, it means more. So those things can balance each other out, right? If you make somebody feel like they're the boss, they may want to establish you with a title that makes you feel like you're different than all these other women. You're more important than all these other people. That is not the same feeling or emphasis that a lot of guys get when it comes to being a husband or something along those lines. They want to feel like they're in charge or they're important or they run the things around here or however the case may be. And it doesn't mean that they're being mean about it. They could run things great and be happy, but again, if they don't have it established, some person could feel like, oh, who are you telling me what to do? Or, I'm not your slave, or I'm not this, that. Like, having a good dynamic and an established dynamic is good once you get so far in a relationship. But that's all I really have. My cigar is ending. If anybody watched this, I appreciate you listening. But this was really so I could, you know, make use of my Valentine's Day. It's nearing the end. I got about 7 minutes left of Valentine's Day. In all reality, I did have a couple people to date, but actually, I spent it with my son. I spent the day. He had a girl he had a crush on. I took him to get a flower and some chocolates. He was like, "Oh man, I didn't know it was Valentine's Day. I really wish I could have got some." Well, buddy, what kind of dad am I if I'm not a wingman? Anyway, thanks for tuning in. God bless you. For all those out there looking for love, um, I hope you find somebody soon. Somebody that really, really makes you happy. Somebody that makes the world just so much better in every single way. A true person who's got your back, because we call them a partner, and even though the dynamics may be different, maybe it's a dynamic of an employee and employer, or maybe the dynamic is of two partners in the business, because that's really what it is. A relationship is like a business partnership. But regardless, having that company, that person who loves you, that person who cares for you, that person that's willing to die for you, that person that you're not happy to die with. Obviously, you don't want to die, but you don't you don't do it with hesitation. Like, they mean the world to you. They bring you nothing but joy for all your days. They're rarer than rubies, right? They're healing, a healing presence even in your darkest hours. We all want a person like that, and I understand. And I pray that you find somebody like that soon. I pray that I find somebody like that soon. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. To anybody, to the rare person that may have listened to all of this, God bless you, and peace out.